What's going on, folks? We are back with the spoiler section review of the D&D movie Honor Among Thieves. We didn't say it at the start of the last one, but I'm going to say it here now. This is just our opinion. We're not being paid by Wizards of the Coast to review this one way or another, or Hasbro or anybody else. Not that I feel that needs to be said, but you know what? You never know in today's day and age. So,
Come on, man. We
um,
got to make that money somehow.
that's right.
We
Yeah.
got to talk to Watsy about this.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, I guess we did have a sponsor at the start of the last episode, so yeah, that's video. So, all right. So why don't we start kind of at the beginning, and we'll kind of talk through the points of the movie, and then discuss things as we go. So, we really don't have any. It just starts going. We're
Yeah,
in.
it kicks off. Even like in the Paramount, where like the stars are
Mhm,
going, you immediately kind of feel like you know exactly where it's going because it's like all on ice. So
mhm.
you have like that ice. I'm like my first thought instantly, Icewind Dale. I'm like, this is Icewind Dale, right? This is gonna be
Yep.
Icewind Dale.
Yeah. So we start off in, and I was actually a little shocked because we start off with a character that we know nothing about, which is basically, I think, is supposed to be a bugbear, maybe a hobgoblin.
I thought bugbear at first, but then the light hit him just right, and it was like super red skin, and I'm like,
Mm,
that's a hobgoblin. That's got to be
yeah.
a hobgoblin.
Being brought into Revel's End prison of a Rime of the Frost Maiden fame.
Which
Fun.
they did a great job of like the actual look of it. Like it did, it looks so cool.
Well, and fun fact, Paramount slash, I don't know who gave the direction to Chris Perkins, where we're like, hey, make a prison in your next D&D game because we need to make it for the movie. So that's how
Yes.
that came about.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I actually really liked the, in shackles, but with like a weight in a track that they were
Yep.
walking him through. So like, they couldn't go out of
Just
the line.
run. Yeah.
And then we get to see a bunch of, unfortunately, I wish we could have seen more of practical effects. We see a Yuan T in a cage.
Yes. The
And,
UNT was
and
so
I was just
cool.
like, why? Like, these are cool. Like, I mean, you built the practical puppet for that to just like, it's a one scene, you walk by it and that's it.
Yeah.
Like I would have
Yeah.
liked to seen a
That would
little.
have definitely been a cool little like nod to UNT. Not all UNT are bad kind of things to have like a UNT maybe showing
Somewhere.
up somewhere else kind of thing. But I mean, I think what like the UNT the purebloods
Mm,
are kind of more seen as the people who can meld well with
yeah.
humanity and stuff like that. So I guess those would be kind of difficult to
Yeah,
really.
it's true. And then he is brought into his cell, which is one where we meet our two kind of main characters here, in Chris Pine's Edgin and Michelle Rodriguez's Holga, and they're just hanging out and they have a little bit of witty banter. And like this, I thought was well done. I also thought it wasn't like it was. That's also the vibe that you get in this scene is not the entire movie. It's not all
Right.
just played for laughs. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I think this does a really good job of setting up like the characters as kind of the main like characters
Mhm.
because I definitely felt like right from the beginning uh like what was it Edgin
Yeah, just call
Edgin
him Ed.
like
They
it's
start doing that
funny
too, by the
it's
way.
funny because his name is Edgin like
It's
Edgin
Edgin
the
the
damn
Bard.
bard like
Yeah,
come on.
they definitely,
Anyways,
I think, made a point to make it Edgin
yep.
in that, and then eventually they just start calling him Ed,
Ed,
which is
yeah.
also, I mean, again, can't speak for but that's a thing that happens to
It's
me.
definitely a
You
D&D
come up
thing.
with like a D&D character that has some fanciful name, like, oh, my character is Larenthier, half elf paladin, and by the end of it, everybody's calling me Larry.
Larry.
Yeah, exactly.
I
So,
love
Edgin the
it.
Bard just becomes
Yeah.
Ed.
So, but yes, it does a really great job of setting them up. I feel like Edgin and Holga are absolutely kind of center focused in like the like we're gonna try to like centralize the story on this two's friendship and
mhm.
like right from the start being that they're friends and the way they talk to each other it does a really good job like within moments.
And I'll ask you, I'll have you explain what is quintessentially one of the most important things is we learn a fact about Holga here as she's in this prison cell, which becomes a thing later on, which we'll get to eventually. But
Yeah.
what's Holga up to at this point?
So right from the start, it sets you up with this is going to be that kind of movie. Okay, all
Uh-huh.
right. So as soon as this creature, which we think is
A
probably like
hobgoblin.
a hobgoblin of sorts or whatever, walks over to her and starts trying to sweet talk her and or like really kind of like harass her. Uh, he's like, "Don't mess with her while she eats her potatoes," and she's just nom nomming on this potato like it's a piece of bread, two
Mhm.
handed, like chewing on this potato. And you know what? I'm gonna put this potato down. And she goes to town on this hobgoblin.
Yeah, I mean, great. Kicks his legs out, they go
It's just
backwards,
awful. Yeah, awful.
beats this guy up. We'll reference this later, but that's Chekhov's potato. It does come up later on in the movie. So,
Yeah.
but then we get a really interesting, very kind of almost D&D version of Shawshank Redemption, kind of Morgan Freeman's character. They're up for a pardon, essentially. They're in jail for some reason. We don't know at this point. And they basically say, tell us what happened. Why, like, basically, why should we let you go? Which I thought was a very neat way to do it because they're telling the story from their perspective, whether or not that's truthful. And then we get the backstory of the characters and how they ended up here in Revel's End prison.
Yeah.
And we have a council of 3 people, and everybody's waiting for Jonathan.
It's Jonathan. No, Jarnathan.
Jonathan,
Jarnathan.
that's it. Yeah.
Jonathan. But you know that was just a play off of the director's name. Like it had to have been.
Hmm.
Jonathan Goldstein is the director of this movie, and you absolutely know that character had to been like him going, okay, we got to create this character's name. Why don't we just call him Jonathan? Like
Yeah.
it's my name, but like an R and oh god,
Yep.
it's so
Hmm.
perfect.
And they're like, yeah, I think they do reference at one point, like, we're gonna get out today. Oh, they're breaking ice. They're doing like the typical, outside, prisoners
Hard
breaking
labor
ice.
kind of thing. It's like the breaking rocks kind of thing
Yeah, and they're like,
anywhere else.
Jonathan's coming. He's an Aarakocra. We'll get out. And I was just like, that's weird. All right,
Yeah, so
whatever.
I was trying to think. I was like, why? Okay. What about an Aarakocra? Or did they befriend this Aarakocra
Yeah,
before?
are they noticeably people that are against? I was like, maybe, maybe I'm stereotyping Aarakocra, but maybe against cages, right? Want to be
Right.
free.
Yeah.
Maybe they're trying to like play into the humanity of it, this whole thing. And then they go and they tell the story. So why don't you give us what is Ed's backstory here?
So Ed's backstory basically goes back to him when he had joined the Harpers. This is like his first kind of foray into kind of becoming the man he wants to be, kind of thing. And he's helping people. He's going about doing the Harper thing. They even go back to showing like him actually getting like the Harper insignia and stuff like that, and like knowing he tells about. They go on and tell a little bit of backstory about the Harpers too, about like them being like this secret agency that works for good and stuff like that, which is freaking awesome because
Hmm.
like you get to learn a little bit about the backstory of the Harpers, and you can play that in your own games now and stuff like
Yes.
that. So but yeah, they go and tell about this whole thing about the Harpers. But Edgin, he has this wife, and he has this daughter, and they have like a loving relationship, and he goes and does all this stuff during the day, and he takes in bad guys all the time. But he always comes home to his humble family, and they're in love. But unfortunately for him, that led to a point where he was not getting the satisfaction that he would like in the Harpers, and eventually um, he messed with the wrong people, basically is what it comes down to. And the Thayans,
Hmm. Thans.
the Thayans, they come and they murder his wife,
Hmm.
and leave him his daughter. So the backstory basically goes that he is left alone with his daughter, and the one person that picks him up out of the dirt while he is a drunkard and trying to figure out how to be a single father and everything like that is our other character, Holga. And Holga goes in there and kind of basically becomes like a new mother to them. But it's like they definitely lead it into like a best friend type relationship. They don't
Yeah.
leave it open to interpretation. Like these two
Mm-hmm.
are not together at all. They leave it to a very, very much like we are best friends. You are helping me out and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And she becomes a mother figure to that child. Um, and uh, and they kind of lead to, I guess, where the last, the last hurrah, like this is gonna be it. And they talk about the thing that they need to go steal, something that they believe will be able to resurrect his dead wife and bring back the mother of his child.
Yeah, so I'll jump in there for a sec. So yeah, he obviously Red Wizards of Thay, big plot point. You see it in some of the trailers. Essentially the ultimate kind of main villain and a good villain. The Red Wizards of Thay and Thayans in general, usually pretty nasty, pretty bad stuff. So it makes sense to have
Yeah.
them kind of be your ultimate villain here. But a point that they made is that he is not being a harper is great like for the soul but not for the wallet. Like he's not making any money.
Right. Like it's
And
just he's trying to make ends meet still, even though
yeah,
he's part
even
of
though
this
he's
organization.
saving, stopping bad guys, doing all this stuff. And then again has this interaction. The Thayans come and they kill his wife, but they made a point that she was stabbed by a
Ah,
Thayan blade, and you can't cleric magic can't resurrect someone stabbed by a Thayan blade.
yeah, there's like no healing, no resurrection, that kind of thing is regular people death.
Right, yeah, which I do like that they at least touched on the fact that we are in a D&D world where were it not that case, potentially
Just
could
resurrect her.
just resurrect her, right? That's just a thing
Yeah,
you could have done,
exactly.
which is also a fantastic way to add tension and like gravity to somebody dying in a D&D world is like, oh, they're killed by this weapon that makes it so you just can't because normally, yeah, like I said, that's the biggest problem with trying to add serious consequences to a D&D game is like if you have enough money, nothing is real in D&D. You could just bring people back
Exactly.
from the dead.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
so yeah, you were saying it's this tablet of reawakening, I think they called
Yeah,
it.
I believe that's what it was.
And it's essentially supposed to be like a one-time use magic item
Mhm.
that can bring her back from the dead, even though she was
Which, yeah,
stabbed.
which I assume that means that it could do other things, but I don't think they really explain the other things that it
No.
can do. They
So
definitely made it sound like it was left open to interpretation that it has the ability to do this as well as other things.
yeah, so I mean, whether it can or can't, it would just fine. You know what? And that's also like a D&D kind of a thing. Like people get a rumor about a magic item that's supposed to do something, and it's like, oh yeah, we used it for this, and it's like, oh, turns out it could have done all these other really cool things. You just didn't identify it. So
It almost sounded to me like a wish thing. Like it
almost,
almost made
yeah.
it sound like a wish thing. Like you have one thing and it just doesn't matter. Whatever you wish for, that's what you get, kind of thing.
And they did gather a party to do this, and their thought is they're gonna go steal. He's done with the Harpers, by the way, if we didn't make that clear. But they're gonna go to a Harper
Yeah,
stronghold.
they build a foundation of like friendship during this like callback. Like right at the start of the movie, they're like, here are our friends, here are the people that we worked with in the past and stuff like that. And in that friend group, matter of fact, is like you have the sorcerer, you have Hugh Grant's character Forge
Mm-hmm.
as part of their party, and you have Sofina,
Mm-hmm.
a wizard that they brought along with them on these, on these little heists that they have. They basically, what they show you is like a leveling up montage. They
Mm-hmm.
kind of show you like a friend, we're like becoming friends, like our level 1 through 3 adventure, and then they are like, all right, this is the last heist, this is the one.
Oh, and it's important that his daughter says, "I'm happy." You don't like his daughter's now teenager, right at this point,
Yeah.
and it's basically like, "I'm happy. We don't need anything else." And they're basically like, "This is one last score, right? This is the one." And Ed makes a point to not tell her that this is to get the tablet to bring her mother back, which I
Right.
guess is something you could have possibly like if you were nitpicking. This would have been like a potentially poor narrative choice where like I'm not going to tell you that I'm going out on this specific job to get a tablet to try to bring your mom back because if it doesn't work, then you'll lose her all over again, even though you don't remember her because you were an infant when she died.
That is true. They reiterate that like 2 or 3 times in the
Mm-hmm.
movie too. That exact point to say like, this is why I didn't say it. Okay, this is why.
Yeah,
Because
and
I feel like
it's
they're gonna have people like us being like, that kind of sounds a little weird. Why didn't you tell her?
yeah, because I mean, realistically, hey, listen, uh, I'm gonna get your mom back. There's a magic item. It'll do the thing. One last score.
Even if you say like, there's the possibility of this at
Right.
least,
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
like
Don't
we're
play
gonna
it
do
up
this and
as a fact, right?
for sure,
This
right?
is and like she might have been on board. Which, by the way, they also should point out that that the daughter has a pendant that lets her turn invisible.
Yeah, during their escapades,
They
they actually
come.
just straight up stole from like
They
stores,
just
like they
broke a
broke
window and just
broke
took
in
a
the
bunch of
window,
stuff.
just stealing stuff. But yeah, Holga actually finds her a magic pendant that makes her invisible, which is cool.
Oh, and they do have a code. They are thieves, but they don't kill anybody. They
They don't
just
hurt. Yeah,
they
they don't
don't
hurt or kill anybody.
they just steal. So
Hmm.
that's again, we've got this whole honor among thieves name of the movie. They have a code that they live by, and that's that. So then
And
again,
they steal from people that won't feel it the most.
yeah,
So
so a
basically,
Robin
they
Hood,
steal from Robin Hood style kind of thieves.
and then they're gonna go to this. So I'll kick it back to you. They go to this Harper stronghold to get like this is where the tablet is. This is the final score.
Yeah, so they go into this the stronghold, which I believe was like a like you said, a Harper stronghold that only Harpers were supposed to know
Mm-hmm.
about. They had a hard time even getting Edgin to like go on board with this because it was like going against his own
Right.
people basically to get this thing. But eventually convincing them, they go to the stronghold, they get inside. But once inside, it's like a treasure trove of stuff, which I am very mad at myself for not just looking around the scene,
Yeah.
because I'm pretty sure there is going to be like some like cool magic items in there that would probably be easily identifiable. But I was
Mm-hmm.
too busy, of course, listening to the story and everything like that. But I'm going to go back and watch it again. But
Yeah.
anyways, they go inside, and inside they find a treasure trove of magic items and like really important things that the Harpers have pulled and like taken away from bad guys, essentially. And then when they go inside, of course, Sofina, obviously the red wizard of Thay, she turns on the party by taking this artifact, which is basically this horn,
That
essentially.
another nitpick we know nothing about, and we never
Mhm.
get any information about throughout the course of this movie,
Yep.
which is also part of the reason why I would call it a little bit of not a perfect film. I'd love to know what it is or why that's important, but I
Yep.
never will.
Yep. And I mean, that's got to be like somewhere in like lore somewhere. They have
Right.
to be like, this is what this magic item is, and this is what it does. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
At first, I think one of my friends had mentioned it's kind of like the Horn of Orcus. Somebody had
Yeah, could be.
kind of like the critical role Horn of Orcus kind of thing, where it brings back undead, like anybody undead that wears it, and then like maybe the red wizards were able to like siphon that ability into it to like cause everything around it to be resurrected, that kind of thing. So we don't know, just red horn of bad.
Yeah, yeah.
And so while this is happening though, Edgin actually finds the tablet that he was supposed to find, the thing that's supposed to resurrect his dead wife. When that happens, she immediately goes in and casts time stop on the people. Whenever this happens, by the way, Edgin sets off an alarm, and
Yeah.
and things start going to hell. People like guards start coming in, and they're all under attack. But then time stop, like literally time stop, and like they say time stop, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
holy crap, this person is way more powerful than
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was, like right off the bat. They do a really great job of showing it time stop like wise, and
Yeah.
because the first thing I said was like, oh my god, that's time stop, isn't it? So they did a really good job of showing it. But unfortunately for the group, Edgin's character, like the only person that was able to get out of that time stop was Forge, and Edgin gives one last like, take this and take care of my daughter and protect her, as he throws the artifact at Forge. And Forge gives a very, oh sure, I'll do that for you. Like there was no like like if I was in that time stop and I saw him do that, my last expression would be like, what have I done?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Man.
The
So
visual I think was also really cool because rather than like the time stop just like happening, it
mm,
iterates it origin. There's like a point for the time stop, and
yeah,
it kind of grows in a wave, which was really cool because stuff starts slowing down. And basically, if the wave is coming and you are able to get it on the other side of the wave, you can keep out of it. But if
yeah.
you like get caught in it, it starts to like slow you down. And that was a really
It's like that
cool.
one TikTok thing where there's a line and it like
Yeah,
starts sucking you in kind of thing when you touch
yeah,
the line. I think it's
yeah.
very similar to that. But to me, I was the whole time I was thinking, like, what if your body like contorted a certain way, like with your, like lower half facing this way and your top
Mm.
half facing this way when the time stop happened, your like body would be horribly contorted for that whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry. It's a
No,
silly
no, no,
thing I
no,
was
no.
thinking of in that moment. But they did a
It
great way of showing it.
it was definitely because I don't think that's mechanically necessarily how the spell works, but it looked. This was a obviously taking a little bit of a narrative, leeway here as the director with the effects, and I thought it was really well done. It also makes it that much more dramatic in the fact of, like you said, he could give him stuff like as his legs are slowing down, pitch the tablet away, but
Yeah.
also they don't. No one really touches on this in the movie. Is that Holga falls early and gets caught by the time stop, and he looks at her and he starts running, like gonna
He
leave her
does.
behind,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they never touch on that. But
Hmm.
like he was like there was very clear that moment of like, do I go back and save her?
Self-preservation kind of
And he
thing,
was
like
just
that he
like, no,
doesn't
I'm
really talk about.
yeah, and he just leaves. And Simon, I
Yeah.
guess, and Sofina also gets out as well. And then obviously Forge, which we cut back to them in Revel's End. And it's, oh, I don't know if we said it, but they've been there for 2 years.
Yeah.
Is
It's been
is
two
how
years
long
since.
they've been in prison here. Um, and they do cut back and forth a couple of times. Like, is Jonathan? I think he really appreciate this.
Yeah.
Can we
There
just?
is there is like a comedic effect that goes throughout this very serious story. Like every time he's like, and by the way, they also, I think that was cool is they specifically say, this is my character's backstory. Like
Yeah,
Edgin says, like, this is my backstory. I think Jonathan would really appreciate this, like my
yeah.
backstory or something like that. Um, so I think they did a really good job of like, they're gonna tell like backstories, like actual backstories, like have these like remembrance scenes of what happened in their past, kind of thing.
And then the door opens, and who comes through the door? Oh, they stamp their the like the whatever the release paper pardon option.
Mm-hmm.
They stamp it. And they're like, wait, before you do anything, hang on. And then our good buddy Jonathan, whatever his name
Oh,
is, comes through the
oh,
door.
not to mention he goes back. Edgin says, like, to try and buy time. Edgin turns back to Holga and is like, Holga, do you have anything to add to this story? And she's like, nope, I'm good.
Yeah, yep,
It's like,
yep. Uh,
so yeah.
and then our buddy walks through the Aarakocra, and their whole plan was to grab him and jump out the window because he's got wings and fly. And then again, you're still in Revel's End in the middle of Icewind Dale, but that was your plan, and then to just like leave. And my favorite part is they're jumping out the window, and I think it's the Dragonborn that's there, and he's like, "But we approved your pardon," and then they leap out the window.
I was dying in the theater. I was dying laughing at that. Oh my gosh. I love that they stuck to their guns, even though he loves to come up with like plan A's and B's and C's. They're like plan A, and that's it.
Hmm.
Like there is no plan B.
And I felt very much like I got like Ack Inc. Also, just general D&D vibes of like they do this stupid plan, and then the DM's
Mhm.
just like, "But we would have." Oh, okay. All right. I guess this is what we're
Like
doing
they were
now.
already on your side. You didn't have to kill everybody in the room. Like, like that
Hmm.
kind of thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So then we get a little bit of a montage. They leave, and their plan is to get some stuff, and they're gonna go try to find his. They go back to his house, Ed's
Yeah.
house.
They
He finds
find out immediately that like
it's gone,
his daughter's
empty.
gone.
He does find his loot, um, which though he is labeled, I'll point this out. Never casts a spell. Never does anything
Mhm.
bardic. So in other than like coming up with plans. So ultimately, realistically, why would you bring him on a D&D campaign? He's just an NPC.
He's just a guy.
He's just a guy.
He is just a guy with very high charisma, mind you.
Sure,
But
sure.
he is just a guy.
Yeah,
no magic, nothing.
Yeah, definitely better
The
options.
one time that I would have considered him actually casting a spell or doing some kind of enchantment ends up not being him at all. So that gets thrown out the window later on.
So they're trying to figure out, and they find that Forge is now the Lord of Neverwinter. They're like, what the hell?
Which is wild to think about.
Yeah,
like,
this
what?
is like your buddy who was going on like petty heists with you 2 years ago is now the lord of a major city. And he's bringing back. They bring up these games. I can't remember the name of the games, but basically like an arena style game to bring fans in.
Oh yeah. I can't remember either, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And they make their way to Neverwinter, where they go basically to go meet with his daughter and Forge. And it unfortunately does not go well because we find out that Forge, true to his nature as a con man, is a jerk. And basically lies and tells the daughter that it was a tablet of riches.
Which is just an awful name for a magic item, by the way.
Right, yeah. So he was after the tablet of riches to make money, and then left her behind for that, not for the option to possibly bring back her mother, and it's essentially poisoned the daughter's mind against Ed. And then also he's still working in consort with Sofina, the red wizard, who by the way, I don't think the party knows is a red wizard at this point. They just know she's a wizard.
She's a powerful wizard. I think they don't put the 2 and 2 together.
We could tell the sunken black eye sockets really like.
So this is where I
suspension of disbelief there.
It's a suspension of disbelief. Sofina never once tries to hide the fact that she looks like a necromancer.
Yeah.
Straight up like I am a necromancer. Like you could just tell from the beginning, from when you first meet her. So I mean, it is funny, especially like because he becomes the lord of Neverwinter, and like nobody questions his second in command looking like a necromancer.
With
like nobody's
weird,
like, Lord, please, what is going on?
Thing,
yeah,
some weird costume choice.
Reminds me of like Dune, something you would see in like Dune.
Yeah, very
some
strange,
kind of costume choice.
Options there, and basically they're like, well, they pull up the fact that they escaped from Rebels End, so they're technically wanted.
They actually at first they lied, right? They lied because they tell the daughter that they got out on good behavior. And then the whole time they're talking to Forge, the way Forge kind of gets his daughter to believe that they're lying is that he tells them they've been lying this whole time, even at the table, by bringing up a wanted poster from Rebels End saying that these people have escaped and not been let off on good behavior. So
and then basically they're gonna get rid of them. They're the Sofina kind of whispers to like one of the guards, and then they go off, and essentially they're gonna just like, he said, go turn him in and get the reward, and then she's like, no, let's just.
Yeah, Sofina just says like, just kill him in the streets. Apparently, I guess that's what she tells him.
This we see in the trailer, right, where Rodriguez
blocks it's a little bit extended.
It is, and I do appreciate it. There's a lot of interesting discussion about a weapon, like about this axe. They talk about that quite a bit. But basically, we get our first kind of a real major action scene here, where we get to see Holga throw down with all her wrestling moves here. You know, doing all sorts of different signature moves, slamming people's faces into the ground.
And may I say, hats off to the fight coordinator. Holy crap. The fight scenes in this freaking movie are better than some fight scenes in fight movies. Like the coordination and the fight coordination and stuff like that is actually so well done. And of course, Holga being like the barbarian of this, she uses improvised weapons constantly. She's using her hands. She's using actual weapons like different times and stuff. It makes it so that it is so varied during the fight that the longer the fight goes on, the more I'm just like, what is she going to use next? Like, what is going to happen next kind of thing. It doesn't get boring or old.
And the whole time, Chris Pine is trying to saw out of his ropes. Right? That's the
Classic
whole.
Bard.
I do. There was a line that was in one of the trailers that they didn't have. Where he's like, maybe I should have found a
Yeah.
sharper rock.
Yeah.
And that wasn't in the film. That was just, I guess,
But
a line for the trailer.
they replaced it with he was like using a sword.
Yeah, he had like
to try
wrapped
and
around
cut
his
through.
leg, and he's trying to cut through it.
Yeah.
Eventually, obviously, he breaks free, but pretty much right at the end. And then they're like, okay, we gotta go do. We gotta.
And she takes the axe.
Yeah, she gets that becomes her mainstay weapon for the rest of the film. And, they have to get boiled linseed oil
Yeah.
because that's what you need to keep.
That's how
the
you care
axe.
for it. You got to
Yes.
do it. You got to do it once a week at least.
Yes, apparently. So then it becomes, all right, we need a plan. How are we gonna? He's got the tablet. He's here. He's a jerk. We got to take him down. How are we gonna get in here? I think he gives them a little bit of exposition about like the vault and all of the people from coming to bet on the games, the richest people.
Yes. Yeah.
So they're like, okay, the vault must be where the tablet is. We got to figure out how we're gonna get inside there.
Right. Yeah. That's the whole kind of like, I mean, whole plot of the story essentially starts then. Like, how are we gonna break into the vaults of this big city, of this big event?
Yeah, and during the games or before everything is all handled, we're gonna need a team, right? And we see this a little bit in the trailer, and then they basically are like, "Who would you even get?"
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ocean's 13 style. Like, we need these types of people to join our group. Let's do this. And it's funny because they start with like, who's the only other person we've ever worked with before that we could trust? And they go to the shitty sorcerer.
Yes, Simon, who I don't know if they touch on it. They mention it a couple times, but he's a wild magic sorcerer, right? So
yes.
his magic is chaotic and doesn't always necessarily work the way he wants it to. And he is performing a magic show?
Literally stage magic, like almost to the point of like up close magic. Like, that's how it felt.
Whoa, holding lightness finger
like
on fire.
One finger lighter fire kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, what about you guys like the smell of fresh cut grass?
Okay, and that immediately I was like, the second they said that, I was like, oh my god, Critical Role reference.
Yeah,
holy
that
shit.
Had to be, right? Because it was very specific.
100% had to be. And it had to be later on in production too. Like, if that was a Critical Role reference, like season 3 would have been brand new and or like just starting right around production times for the movie. So but that had to be like, there's no way fresh cut grass like being added. It's very specific. So yeah, there's your Critical Role reference. I know we didn't get to, I mean, I didn't see them in the movie. They might be hidden in there somewhere, but that is 100% your Critical Role reference.
Yeah, I also thought it was funny that he's holding like the candle finger, and one of the women in the crowd's like, "My 5-year-old can do that magic." And I'm like,
can
wow,
your 5-year-old do this?
Yeah,
fresh cut grass.
Yeah. But the party shows up, and we basically see he's distracting them as he is currently having some sort of magical thing steal everybody's valuables while they're all watching his really crappy magic show.
Yeah. He had ulterior motives during this really crappy show.
Yeah, he made himself slightly blurry, so I guess that was like a blur spell, but not like
that was
all
blur.
The way.
That was 100% blur, but like, yeah, but not all the way.
And I think he said like anybody can make themselves blurry, but it's really hard to make yourself only a little blurry,
lightly blurry. To me, that just spouts like, but okay. So here's the deal, right? Not a wizard, sorcerer,
right.
Charismatic, putting on a performance. Like, that plays into charisma and performance and like doing all those things and stuff like that. Even though it wasn't well taken, it was still playing into the sorcerer versus wizard aspect of it.
So shenanigans ensue. He gets caught. He reverses gravity on the entire place, which is
really
cool.
accidentally. Wild magic style. I didn't realize. I was like, holy shit. He was just doing like lighter finger before. Now he's reversing gravity.
Yeah, we're going from cantrips to 7th level spells.
Yeah.
Basically, they escape and they're like, okay, he's on board. Like, thank you for saving me. This is gonna be really hard. How are we gonna do this? And they come up with the concept of, what if we got a druid? A druid could wild shape into like a fly or a mouse or a deer. which becomes a thing. Chekhov's deer also gets payoff here in this movie.
They
Michelle
do a lot
Rodriguez,
of they do a lot of alluding to things like in the future. You know what I mean? They do a lot
yeah,
of like this is definitely going to happen, isn't it?
Michelle Rodriguez says, or Holga says, yeah, or a deer, and then yeah, they're like, yeah, like all the deer that will mill around with all the deer in the castle, the fit right in. Um, and then that's where they go to introduce Doric, the tiefling druid, who we realize too. Simon has like he tried to court her in the past, but she turned him down because he made her sad.
His
Not
lack of
Yeah,
confidence.
his lack of confidence in himself just made her sad because it was depressing. Not like he did something to make her upset. He just existed and it made her
The
upset.
the meetup between Doric and them is hilarious. She's like, "Who are you?" He's like, "It's me," and she's like, "I still don't know who you are." He's like, "I'm the one who made you sad." It's just like,
Yes. And I do like there's a lot of this where like there'll be a plot point, two people are talking, and then like usually Chris Pine's character will just like jut something in the background like a
get you a
little
good
quip.
one-liner.
Yeah, and she's just like, I'm Simon. I courted you. I made you sad. And she's like, I still don't know who you are. And he's like, ooh, that sucks. Like something like that in the background, like
Yeah,
little quips like that.
yeah, that stings or something.
Yeah. And you see this in the trailer. This is the famous owlbear transformation scene.
Yeah,
We also get the mention of the Emerald Enclave, another one of the major factions of the Forgotten Realms, right? So we have the Harpers, we have the Emerald Enclave. Long
yep.
story short, Forge is deforesting, which is a bad thing. So she got taken in by the little D&D knowledge, tiefling daughter to human parents, which is a thing that can
Mm-hmm.
happen.
Yep.
And they decided they didn't want a tiefling daughter. So she joins up with the Emerald Enclave and the
And she
elves.
holds like a whole like vendetta against humans because of it, like
Mm-hmm.
because of the way she was treated. She's like,
Right.
I just don't like humans.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't like the way they are. They're distrustful. Like, you can't trust them, basically.
Yeah, and then we immediately will cut to seconds later, Ed lying about things immediately.
Yeah.
And then they say, basically, she joins them because she's on board to take this guy down because Forge is just a bad dude. How are we gonna do it? She's gonna wild shape, and I think it cuts to um the like Forge showing people the vault, these rich
Yep.
hoity-toity people, lords of Baldur's Gate, and I think oh, you know what, before that we do get some Sofina background here where she's talking to Zastam through like an astral projection. She has the
Yeah.
horn of MacGuffin that doesn't have a name. That is all the thing that she needs.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool scene. It was a pretty cool scene because it was. I'll tell you, I don't know about you, but there was some actually creepy, like scary moments in this,
Mm-hmm.
and like because they did a really good job of really creepy stuff and jump scares. Like,
Yeah.
holy crap, I did not expect that in this at all.
Yeah, no, him in the corner, just kind of spooky, astral, shadowy Zastam talking to
Nasty
her.
looking face, like
Yeah.
decayed,
Uh,
creepy eyes.
and basically sets up what will ultimately become kind of the main endpoint of this is that he needs her to do something here in Neverwinter. We don't know what it is, but it has something to do with the MacGuffin horn. This is where I wish we got some more. Like, I get it, she's evil. She's a Thayan wizard. Like, she's just bad. I would have liked a little more characterization on her other than just, like, cardboard cutout bad guy.
Yeah.
This would have been an opportunity, not to say that she needed too much, but, like, this would have been an opportunity to give us, like, a couple more lines of dialogue to, like, explain, like, get a little bit about her
it
character.
it would have been neat to see the connection between Taz and her
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like they did show it, like she was like there when it happened kind of
Yeah.
thing, but so were like 300 other
Right.
ones. I think it would have been nice to see like a connection, like a deeper
Yeah.
connection
Why
between her.
her? Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, that just a little bit, I mean, the best villains, like that's why Ford just kind of works as a great villain because we've learned about him. We know like they used to be friends and he's a
Right.
double cross and it's all this kind of stuff. So that I think works well. we know enough about him to dislike him, but also to kind of get ultimately why he's doing some things, because he's just like in it for the money.
Yeah.
She's evil for evil's sake.
which
And
which is okay, I guess. I mean,
yeah,
it's
well,
not
it's,
terrible.
it makes like the best villains are the ones that have a little bit of a human quality to them.
Yeah,
Right? You look at
for sure.
like a Darth Vader, right? Great villain, spooky, evil, ethereal, bad, has some tragedy to it.
Yes.
And you look at something like, I don't know, Voldemort, who's just evil and is boring because he doesn't have, like, that's his whole thing, is he's the bad guy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yep.
So I would have liked to see a little more, why is she chosen, other than the fact that she was there when the horn was stolen. But then she's also been sitting on this for 2 years. Like, this has been, like, there are clearly some, like, why her? Why Forge? Like, we get little tidbits here and there, but this is a 2-year plan in the process. I think a
Yeah.
little bit more backstory on that would have helped to flesh it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, still a fan of the movie and everything in general, but this is why when I said it's not perfect, these are kind of the little nitpicks that kind of can lose you, combined
For sure.
together like a point or so over time. So yeah, they're showing off the vault, and Doric, our druid, is a fly, right, observing, and in perfect D&D exposition fashion, he is telling the two hoity-toity nobles literally everything that the party needs to know, right? Like, it is, this is the thing, this is the vault, this is how we're gonna do it, all of these things. It's sealed by I don't know, like,
Mordekainen, yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead, say.
Mordekainen's seal or something, and she's like,
Yeah.
we're gonna, and this is my associate, she's gonna tell you how the vault is sealed, and she's like, it is sealed by the seal of Mordenkainen. And then everybody's just like,
that's it.
And he's like, okay, I guess that's all she's gonna say. All right.
The comedic value of some of the lines are really great. And again, like you said, Hugh Grant like nailed it, like the timing and his portrayal of this character.
You know what? I haven't seen him in a movie in quite a while, to be honest with you. I think I don't know if he stopped acting entirely, but I haven't seen him in stuff for quite a few years. And he does a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, which I did think was interesting is that our red wizard here can sense that there's a wild shape present.
So I don't know if it was like maybe it's just like a obvious, like, I'm the DM, I get to say whatever I want, kind of thing, or if it's like maybe she cast like an alarm spell earlier, and something like set off in her head, like, there's somebody here, but to like specify that it was like a wild shape thing, yeah, that was kind of out there. But and then again, this is another one of those moments that were just like out of the blue, horrifying and scary, as she like points directly at the camera and starts screeching at us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God.
And a really awesome scene ensues of just a like in and out of wild shape to leave, right? Turns back into her tiefling form inside a suit of armor. Then we go into a mouse, into a bird, into a cat. So cool. Again, like you brought it up before we started talking about how people are like, she wild shapes like 15 times. So by that definition, she's either a level 20 druid.
That's what it was like, oh, she has to be a level 20 druid, right?
But I think we could, you know what? I'm going to bring it up here because it happens a couple times and we could just talk about it now. I noticed it, and you brought it up independently of us talking about it. She never casts spells as a druid.
Right. And so, like I was saying before, the one thing about D&D, when you play D&D, you're going to very, very, very rarely find that when you play in D&D, the one thing that happens at everybody's table is homebrew rules. Yep. And I think that is how they played with this druid, because they mentioned from the start of the movie, they're like, oh, we should get a druid. We'll get this druid. And then they mentioned, well, this isn't like other druids. This is like a special druid. And like at one point in the movie, they don't even refer to her as a druid. They refer to her as a wild shape. They like say, we got to get this wild shape as like a label, like a name of this type of person. So I think that this was like a custom druid class. I feel like no magic, no nothing, just turn into all the animals you want, but you don't get any magic. You just get to beat the heck out of people.
Well, and it's interesting because like literally saying a druid is faster than saying a wild shape, right? Like it's not
Yeah.
like it's a shortened version of something.
Right. Right.
And yeah, the red wizard specifically, and the Thayans refer to Doric as the wild shape, a wild shape. But like, you can't tell me that the Thayans have never heard of a druid before, right? Like it's not like it's like
Right.
so.
Yeah.
So I think to your point, yeah, I think that might be what it is. This is like a custom, and this is not unheard of in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. And maybe somebody's made something already, or if not, this could be a cool project for someone to work on. This is a spell-less druid, right? We usually see spell-less classes for things like ranger or paladin that don't
Right.
have full-blown casting, and like you give them stuff to make up for it. And there's even an Unearthed Arcana from way back in like 2015 where they made a spell-less ranger that had like the ability to make salves and things to heal people as opposed to having healing magic. So this, I think,
Yeah.
to your point, a druid, no spell casting of any kind, uh, has alternate wild shape forms of things that you normally wouldn't have, like monstrosities with this owlbear, but also seemingly possibly no limitation on the number of wild shapes or a significantly
Or
reduced
like a
limitation.
greater. Right,
Right.
like a greater amount of like actual wild shapes you get. Like
Because
two
you're not
wild
having
shapes
spells. Right.
per day kind of thing up to level 20. And that's just the way it's normally played. I think having a number of like, let's say, per level, that's the next wild shape you get. So like level 2 you get 2, level 7 you get 7 wild shapes, that kind of thing.
Right.
I feel like that would be a cool way to play it, and allow the druid to then reach into the pocket of like monstrosities and like all these other things like dragons and
Mm-hmm.
all those things that you normally wouldn't be able to. But then again, taking away that magic, you're now looking at somebody who's more of a brawler or a utility person, somebody
Yes.
who can fly into places, somebody that can check out your other areas before you go in and stuff like that. All those abilities that you would get just by turning into an animal, you now can get those abilities more often, but you don't get all the massive amounts of magic that druids can get.
Yeah, I mean, we're not even a cantrip, right? Like, we're
Yeah,
not getting
literally.
nothing because there's like, you could, if you wanted to go a different route when homebrewing this, could be like, okay, you could turn into a higher level creature, but you lose access to spells, kind of a thing, or like, hey, you want to turn into a monstrosity, it uses all your third level spell slots or something, right? You could do
Yeah.
something like that mechanically
Mm.
if you're just trying to homebrew something. But yeah, I think this is an instance of possibly, I mean, they referred to her as a druid a couple times, so I think we have to take
Yeah.
that at face value. And the directors did say, because people did ask, like, what's up with the owlbear, right? Like,
Owlbear, the,
there's
the
a
the
huge
the elephant in the room.
controversy for that. And the directors basically said it's the rule of cool, right? Like, it's our table. We thought it'd be cool to have her turn into an
Oh,
owlbear.
where?
Yeah, well, look at that. I didn't even notice that till just now. But yes, the rule of cool, that's what they said. Like, it's just
Druid fanboy.
owlbears are cool. We're going to let her turn into an owlbear. And that's the reasoning why. But when you look at it a little more mechanically, that's her whole shtick, this whole movie. Other than
Yeah,
like a wrist mounted slingshot, which is just a slingshot.
which is just your regular. Because I was like, oh, maybe it's a magic weapon. Because I like my first thing was like, okay, maybe magic stone,
Right,
and
sure.
then all of a sudden I'm like, no, she shot it from a freaking slingshot. Because she did like a weird like action movement when she first shot it. But
Mm-hmm.
I guess that was just her prepping
Yeah.
the band or whatever it might be. But yeah, no, it was just a regular Hebel in a sling.
Yeah. And basically, she's able to make it back to the party to relay all the information. And that's when we learn that it's the seal of Mordenkainen, and Simon can't break it. He needs a
Yep.
special, it's way beyond his level of magic. So he needs the helm of disjunction, which is this magic helm that shuts down all sorts of enchantments. Where could it be? And that's when we get into things that we have seen trailers about, this whole concept of the Speak with Dead. All right, we're gonna cast Speak with Dead. We'll ask some people, and we get the funny scene that we all saw in the trailer where like they ask one dead guy 5 questions, and they're like, "Hey, don't answer any questions unless I tell you to." Okay, and he's like,
So
"Yes."
so there was a road that led to actually getting to this graveyard. It actually turns out that Holga, her
Oh, that's true.
people had gotten into a battle long ago, and during that battle they were fighting for this helm. Like
Yes,
that's the
that's
whole
right.
point of that battle, was that this helmet that they're talking about, they were fighting for it. And so they actually take pit stop while going to the graveyard to visit Holga's home per se, but it's not the home of her people. It's where she had made her home, and you get to learn a little bit more about Holga's backstory.
That's true. Yeah.
And then you get to see the cameo of the century that I didn't see coming,
Uh-huh.
completely out of the blue. And that's where we meet Bradley Cooper
The gnome.
as a gnome. And I was shocked first off, and I'm like, oh my god, they're gonna turn this into something goofy, and it's gonna be, and then it turns into one of the most wholesome scenes in the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it blows me away because it stands out to me as D&D could be hella goofy at times and hella like just absolutely off the wall funny. But then you got to realize that some of this is based in reality and some of it is based off of like real life scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And in this scenario, Holga couldn't get over the fact that she left her clan to be with Bradley Cooper's character.
Yeah.
And so that was creating tension within their relationship, so much so that Bradley and her broke up eventually.
Yeah.
And it weighed heavy on Holga. She didn't know how to handle it, and that's when she met Edgin.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they kind of they ended up being partners and stuff like that. But I thought it was funny that while they were having this conversation, that his new girlfriend walks in, and she's also this massive like barbarian like woman, which just to me is like, this is D&D. This is amazing.
And I also like that I thought this was handled well, because she wasn't like stay away from my man.
Yes.
Like, they didn't get into a fight. She's like, all right, well, I'm gonna go wash up for dinner, and like just like, nice to meet you, and left. And I was like,
and
wow,
just left it at that.
What a like, we didn't have to deal with this whole like girl they're fighting each other because of like, she's like, oh, don't talk to my man, he's not yours anymore. None of that.
The entire scene was extremely wholesome, and I just did not see that coming. That took me by surprise, and I loved it for it.
She also takes his walking stick that she got for him.
Yes, she takes it back.
That comes up later. But this is the point where this is one of the effects I was talking about that I don't think worked. It was
we'll get to that. I think I'm 100% down with you, and I know exactly what you're gonna say, but yeah.
So then they have them sitting down, right, they're talking, and it's the gnome and the barbarian, right? So you've got small, big, and it just didn't, my eyes.
Why didn't they Lord of the Rings it?
Yeah, I know.
Why didn't they camera perspective? I know it has to do with funds, probably. They couldn't just build like 2 different sets and all that stuff. It's one scene.
You can, exactly. It could have been done clever, like over, like, blocking the camera, so you see Bradley Cooper and you see just a shoulder, right? And then it cuts back and you see like you see Holga there, and you see like, we're again forced perspective, but they
tried really hard to like make the scene where they were just both in the scene exactly together, and you could tell Bradley was like just on a green screen and shrunk.
it just immediately catches your eye as like a poor effect.
And the thing that that really got me, I was like, okay, they wanted to show them together, that's fine, but then Bradley on the chair. That got me too, because Brad was still on a green screen. They didn't build a big chair. So they had a chair with regular amounts of details, and then you had this hyper detailed Bradley Cooper, who in a normal scene, if you had a bigger chair, would be the same like depth of field, everything would have worked and stuff like that. But you could tell that he was on a green screen, just sitting on a green box, and they're gonna like, let's put him on this big chair now.
I
was like,
I mean,
just build a big chair.
Well, here's the thing, right? If you're already green screening at this point, which you have to, you do what they did. Yeah, you do the Lord of the Rings. You shoot Michelle Rodriguez on a set, a small set or a big set, whatever, and then you shoot Bradley Cooper either on the big set and he's small, or on a small set and he's the regular size, and if you're gonna splice them together anyway, it immediately took me out. Like, to the point
I feel bad for the composition team. Like the people that had to do that part, they weren't given an easy task to put like 2 regular sized people together. in the
Yeah, because
scene.
at first, when he first meets her outside, I didn't even know it was Bradley Cooper because I was so taken aback by how bad the effect was. That eventually, when it finally cut in on him, I was like, "Oh, holy shit, that is him."
I think in the and correct me if I'm wrong. The very first time you see him, I think that was a perspective shot. It looked
Yeah,
like a big door because
yeah,
the camera was looking down on him, and it didn't look like horribly out of place. It just looked like the camera was really high up.
yeah. It was. I think so. So I think they were like, this would have been a spot like if you're gonna do this, that's fine. No big deal there. But like it just yeah, that's where you're gonna lose. You lost me. You lost some points. Yeah, half a point, quarter of a point here
Yeah,
on the
quarter,
effect for that. For sure.
I
If
think the scene was wholesome enough too that it took me right back into the moment
mm,
because like I felt like, whoa, this kind of looks weird, but immediately I got sucked back into the story because it wasn't really relying on that too much.
sure.
And so,
Um,
yeah.
and then we jump ahead to the speak with dead scene, which we saw
Mhm.
again in the trailer, which is again a very funny DM way to go about it, where they ask the questions and they're just like, "That count as a question?" Yes. All right. Okay. Uh, and
I, I
get it.
I just want to speak about this real quick about how this could implement into a real D&D game so well because to me this was an excellent way to give backstory to like a war or to like a battle scenario without just having one NPC being like, this is what happened, or them finding a book that says this is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
They have to literally go person to person and find out what was happening in the battle by going to these people until they die, and then they obviously can't tell you anything more, so you have to go to the next person and try and figure out and piece together, puzzle piece, what actually happened during the battle. I thought that was a super cool way to implement it, and I was like, that could actually be played out in a real D&D game to figure out figure out what happened in that battle. That was really cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's definitely I like that a lot. How they would basically get to a point, they'd be like, okay, well, I don't remember anything else, and they're like, okay, I thought you said you gave it to Vin or whatever. And he's like, no, I'm Sven. You not my
That
brother.
was, oh god, that was so D&D. That was so D&D.
Um,
Apparently, I didn't know this. My friend had just told me that this was like a comedy group from Australia that actually got
oh,
picked to voice the undead graveyard. So these people, obviously with a background in comedy, they were probably riffing a lot of the lines that they were given.
mm-hmm.
So that's kind of why they came off to be quite humorous, and they used that moment to really lay into the humor.
And mostly practical effects on the skeletons and stuff.
From what I could tell, it was almost all.
Maybe like
I didn't see anything.
yeah. So I mean, even with like loose eyeballs and stuff, like
Oh yeah, it was just like dangling there.
yeah, really well done puppetry here.
Hmm.
And they touch on the fact that, why only 5 questions seems kind of arbitrary, which is the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, why is sending 25 words? Nobody knows. Just it's how it is.
Yeah. Yep.
And it eventually leads them to know they need to find this paladin, right? This is Zank Yendar. He's the paladin character. You've seen him in the trailers. He's the guy. And then we find out that everybody's heard of him, except for Ed.
Edgin. Yep.
And also that he may be Thayan. So Ed's like, nope, not doing it. And everybody's like, yeah, but he's like a total badass. We should go find this guy. So we get to a town where there's a big fish, big practical fish caught in a net.
Look great. Look great. Loved it.
And he comes over and he lays his hand on the fish and he extracts a baby tabaxi from the fish's mouth.
It was so good.
And that was also a really good practical like fursuit. Basically,
Yeah.
You have
They used a double, yeah, because they had an adult tabaxi they had in a fursuit, and then an animatronic tabaxi baby.
And again, we're throwing in the melting pot kind of concept of the Forgotten Realms, right? We've got our tabaxi here. We have the variety of different humans and elves. We see a couple dragonborn in this scene as well. I will say, this did catch my eye that in the background of one of the shots when they're walking, there's 2 tabaxi talking, and their heads look like unnaturally large, like just like fursuits.
Like fursuit big.
Yeah. So like,
I will say this about the adult tabaxi. I when I think Tabaxi, my first thought is like really slim,
Yeah.
like slender bodied. These are definitely like fursuit, like full on. I'm a cat. Like they look more like house cats than
Yeah.
they do like the Tabaxi that you are shown in like the monster manual or whatever it might be.
Yeah, the ones in the background I think were more like lion tiger esque, so the head's
So
definitely like in the
yeah,
background. But I was just like, that caught me.
I almost said Leonin.
Yeah, yeah,
Like that was in my head for just a second. I'm like, nah, they look more like cats, not like lions. But
yeah.
yeah, they were definitely stand out so much that I also caught them in the
Yeah.
background.
And basically we go through our so you brought it up in either in this video or in the previous one. He is very straight man,
Yes.
right? Doesn't do colloquialisms, doesn't understand.
He is the Drax of
Yes.
this. He is the Drax of this movie where you basically there are no jokes around him. He doesn't understand the intricacies of sarcasm and such. Yeah.
And he does what we had talked about before. He is the NPC that the DM has to introduce because they need to go to the Underdark, which is a spooky, scary place, probably too powerful for the party as it is. So he needs to give them a guide.
Uh-huh.
And the guide happens to be maybe the DM's old character, right? That's probably what it is, right? The DM's old character,
Sure. Yep.
who was significantly stronger than the rest of the party. And I'll guide you to where we need to go. And get you the thing we need, which is this helmet, right? And he gives you all the exposition up to there, which gives us the stuff we need to know about the Red Wizards, and because he was a Thayan born, right? So
he happened to be in the moment too when it all went down. So there's all like these ties to like just that specific moment in time.
Yeah, so they talk about the Zulkirs, which are kind of the Lich leaders or the sorcerer leaders of Thay, which is all historic. This all tracks lore wise, but basically Zastam kills all of them and becomes the leader of Thay. I don't remember if he's a Lich before that or this is his process of becoming a Lich.
He had to have been a Lich. The way he looked, lichy, the way he looked, that was very Lich like.
And he uses the horn, the MacGuffin horn, to summon. They call it some sort of beseeching dead or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's what they said.
And it basically summons a red mist that kills everybody and turns them into undead, presumably under his control, or he's just using necromantic powers to do that. And we see that all the people of Thay are trying to run away, and all the Red Wizards cast a bunch of like shields to stop everybody so they can all be infected with this thing and die.
Yeah. Or a big like shield wall.
We see Sofina there as well casting the spell. So she was, like you said, there at the moment that Zastam took over. But besides that, we don't really get much backstory for her. And then we learn all about that, and that's basically what they're going to try to do again. So we need to get the helm to stop that from happening. So our trek to the Underdark begins. And I was worried about how the Underdark situation was going to go because I was like, I don't know how much they're going to get into with this. And it's actually pretty expeditious to get to where they need to go.
So this is where I kind of specified in the previous video where I never felt like I was getting bored with the scene because I feel like they did the opposite that Lord of the Rings did. Lord of the Rings spent so much time traveling, and they showed you all the aerial shots, and they showed you all the walking and excuse me, sorry, and told you all the necessary in between stories. I think they really cut out all of the in between stories here. Yeah. All of the travel that is in this movie is right at the beginning, where they show them traveling from Icewind all the way back down to their home, and then right here in the Underdark, just like, but there's really only like 2 scenes that are like a few seconds each.
Yeah, we have
of like going from one to the other
scene.
Yeah, that one was in a preview in a trailer as well. Yeah, which I thought was a good joke, but unfortunately, with it being in the trailer, I felt like, I've already seen this.
Yeah, I thought that maybe we were gonna see mind flayers or something because we had intellect
Man,
devourers.
I had so much hopes for the Underdark. Like I was like, I want to see a Smurf Neblin.
Yeah,
I want to see a Drow. I want to have my Driz Doerden like
yeah,
cameo.
cameo. Yeah,
I want something. I want a Drider. Like I was like so ready for something. Mind flayers,
yeah.
beholders, anything.
So we get the joke about they only attack intelligent things, and then we get to this point where we see a big bridge floating over lava. This is also in one of the trailers. He starts going into Zenk starts going into the description of what you need to get across.
I loved it because it was literally a DM telling the players what the like solution to the puzzle is, but then like also figure it out,
Right.
like kind of thing. Like here's the problem. I
Mm-hmm.
want you to solve it.
Yeah, and it's in depth. Right? It's like first we start on odd stones, and we go every other one except for 5. Then we take a lateral step, and blah blah blah. Then halfway across, we switch to even stones, a whole thing, and then typical party fashion, they trigger the trap immediately, and the bridge is gone. Also, typical D&D situation. The DM forgot that he gave one of the characters a magic item, which happens to be in this
Yes.
instance what they call a hither tither staff, which was the
Uh,
walking stick
the
from
hither staff or whatever, or staff. Oh gosh, that's a
yeah
mouthful. Anyways, that staff, I was like, oh cool. They like at least reference the Feywilds, kind of like
yeah.
thinking about that.
And it's the staff, the walking stick that Holga had gotten for her
Yeah.
husband, but it's basically a portal gun
It's literally
with
a
a
portal
a
gun.
half or a quarter-mile range or
Quarter
something.
mile range.
So he just goes thunk thunk and sets a portal, and they go across. Which like I said, I very much feel like the DM's like, oh crap, they have dimension doors. Like, son of a bitch. I forgot that we could just hit
Yes.
or like, oh yeah, and then like the bard's like,
I
oh,
just misty step across.
I just cast fly on all of us. Oh damn it. All right. Well,
Oh man,
that's
I forgot I
that's
gave him a
done.
flying carpet kind of
Oh
thing.
yeah, right. Okay, we're done now.
What was I gonna say? Oh, but the effect on the portal
Mm,
was so basic. I
mm-hmm.
am sorry, coming from
Blue
a
swirly.
virtual stand like a VFX artist to a movie like this, that I can create that portal in about 3 seconds in After Effects. I'm sorry, but it was just not very well done. Like,
So
but I mean, to the effect, it was great and everything like that. And later on, it showed like that it was supposed to be subtle. Like the ring was supposed to be pretty subtle and everything like that, showing the magic and everything like that. But to me, it brought me out of it
mm.
because it's like, oh, I can do that in 5 seconds. I can do that.
So what would you have done different?
So I would have had the effect have like whenever it landed like a portal gun where it's like bloop and it's just there,
Yeah.
and then bloop it's just there. I would have had like a whirl or swirl or like some effect where it like peels the world away, like instead of it like kind of like ashes, kind of like flying
Mhm.
up and then revealing the portal underneath it. I think to me, just the initial effect would have been good enough because it was just like a bloop and it's there. That's kind of what got me thinking like the visual effect of it just being a blue circle was like not as visually appealing to me, at least.
Yeah. So they get across. So obviously, they circumvent the entire DM scenario. They the paladin here has the magic gem that opens it, so we don't have to go through trying to pick
There
the
was
locks.
that was like a wild puzzle like thing that he was doing too. It's pretty cool looking, intricate.
And we have no rogue, we have no thieves tools, so we have the key. We just get inside. And we
Yes,
boom.
the paladin has the thing.
Yeah, we get the helmet, and then I like him like there's evil here, and he just smells the evil, and
Smells the
I
evil.
was like, I think that's divine sense at work,
1000%
you know.
divine. I love it.
And then awesome fight scene. This is kind of in
Yes.
some of the trailers, but Thean Paladin versus Thean assassins, they call them.
Mhm.
Great fight. And they're like, all right, we got to get out of here. And they're like, you killed him. He's like, yeah, that's the tricky thing about dead stuff. Is it's hard.
Some green flame blades going on
Yes,
during
that's
that.
very true. Yeah, and maybe a divine smite or something.
One of the things that I didn't see is a divine smite. I
I
wanted
was
to see
wondering if that was the glowy orange sword. Like he had
So I was thinking devotion paladin casting magic weapon,
that makes more sense. Yeah,
or something like that, where it just gives it like a plus to hit and stuff like that.
yeah.
I was thinking that might have been it, or
No,
maybe
you're
like
more
a searing smite, maybe, because I didn't see any fire.
Yeah, but we didn't
So
see like a flash of divine energy when he hits somebody.
yeah, so I was looking for like a hit and then suddenly like a whoosh or something. You know what I mean? Cool, like
Yeah.
after effect.
And then we get introduced. We see him in the trailer a bunch. Themberchaud, the red
Oh,
dragon.
yeah. Chonky boy.
He is a chonky boy. That is canonical to the world of Faerun. He's a chonky boy. They make a couple of jokes about it.
The best one being like, he must have like come from another layer or something like that. And Edgin says, "What did he eat the other layer?"
Yeah. Then we run away, right? We use the portal, and then it looks like Ed's gonna get eaten. And I thought it was actually gonna be a self-sacrifice moment where
Yeah, I did too.
Zank jumps with a sword. You see it in the trailer. I thought he was gonna that was gonna be it, but he actually just closes the dragon's mouth with a sword to the head, and then they manage to like escape. But they get trapped in like a small box, like a little cave, and there's no way out. And the dragon's face is there, and for some reason, this dragon can't breathe fire.
Okay, so it did breathe fire, I think once or twice during that fight, and I 100% believe that was the director's way of showing that fire breath in D&D isn't like fire breath. It's recharging. It's basically using its like roll to recharge to see if it gets its fire breath back. But they absolutely play it like a freaking like lighter, like a lighter going trying to light the fire.
He's trying to like he's breathing out, I guess, flammable fumes, and he's sparking in his mouth, and he can't do it. So they use Simon's little candle,
the little party trick,
to blow a hole in so they can escape from the Underdark. And yeah, then they just kind of, then the paladin just says, "I'm gonna leave. Like, I've done what I need to do."
Quite literally.
Bye. And that's like, yeah.
Has the funniest scene in the whole movie, in my opinion. While he's walking away in a straight line, they literally like dive into it, and like two characters like settle next to each other, and they're like, "All right, he's walking away. That's an awful straight line that he's walking. Oh, here comes the rock. Is he gonna walk around the rock? Nope, he's gonna walk right over the rock, apparently." I was crying.
I was like, this is, I really appreciate, like I said, that they weren't like, but how about you stay?
Yeah.
But like, for real though, we could use you. And
that guy was 100% a video game NPC.
Mm-hmm.
Like doing the whole, like there's a wall there, but he just clips up the wall and then walks out of the way, until he disappears.
And then it becomes a really, really cool heist concept of because Simon can't attune.
Yes.
Which is an interesting concept, not being able to attune to a magic item. And he sees his great-great-grandfather, which is Elminster. And basically he keeps telling him, like, I don't know, figure it out. And he just keeps getting thrown around by this helmet. Which I'm okay with. I just want to point that, like, that's not technically a mechanic that exists in D&D, right? You want to attune to a magic item, you attune to the magic item. They did this for story purposes, and I'm okay with it. I think I like the decision behind this. What did you think about the whole trying to attune and can't do it?
Yeah. No, I thought it was great. I thought it was a wonderful way to tune into his backstory of how he is not like very confident in himself, and the fact that he can't attune is because of his level of confidence is being contrasted. He's like not high enough level, essentially. I feel like that was kind of like the ploy. Like this thing is like way higher level than he is, and in order to attune to it, he has to like prove that he can actually even wield its power. I felt like that's kind of how it got played out. Because I could see playing that in like a D&D, like a regular D&D game, giving somebody like I don't know, the Holy Avenger at level 1 or something like that. I feel like they wouldn't be able to wield it correctly versus somebody, you know, at level 20 with a Holy Avenger. Maybe give it some maybe minuses, or maybe not,
Sure.
it's not as powerful, or maybe make it a weapon that like grows with them over time until it's at its full power. I feel like that's kind of, excuse me, I feel like that's kind of like how they played out this whole helmet not working for him at first.
Yeah,
But I think
yeah.
it was great how they played it out. Either way.
And then this really clever scene where they're going to use the portal to get into the vault by putting the portal on a picture frame.
Yeah.
And then covering the frame up with the picture again, but then using that to sneak into they're gonna try to protect the caravan from stuff getting taken out, not from stuff getting put in. And it's a really, really clever scene of them using the portal.
Unbelievably clever.
Underneath, they stick it to it. They bang it, knocking out the floorboards. It's a really, really clever scene to position them in the way to get the portal into the vault so that they can eventually just steal what they need to steal and then be done with it. But it's defeated by the floor, by gravity.
The classic D&D situation where they plan and they go through everything that they need to do, and they have to immediately, when in the situation, change everything up because of one thing. And you know that was the DM just saying, wait a minute, what if it fell on the yeah, no, the picture falls on the floor and now everything that you planned doesn't work.
Yeah, so they're like, all right, let's go, and it's just the floor. Because the picture
Stone
fell down onto the floor and they can't get through the portal.
Yeah, because they can't lift the picture. So because like my first instinct was like, oh, just push on the thing and like the frame will lift up. But I'm like, I guess that wouldn't work because the physics of like your arms wouldn't affect the rim of the thing.
They decide, they're like, we can't really pry it. So Doric decides that she'll like try to whittle away the ground enough to be able to turn into an earthworm to go like through. And then they basically are like, well, what else are we going to do? We have to figure out other means to like, let's try something else while you work at this. And I actually am blanking on.
They go back to plan A, which is getting him to try to attune to the helmet. Because like they were like, you know what? Let's go back to attuning to the helmet because I still believe in you. I still believe that you can do it. Because every time that anything's happened in the past, you have, when under pressure, you have always come through. Like you don't come through like when we're just out in the open trying stuff, but you come through in the end when it counts, when it matters. So I still believe that when it's game time, you'll be able to do this.
Yeah, this is giving me very trying to force Aang into the Avatar state. Quick, we'll bury Katara underground.
Yeah.
So we're gonna throw you to the wolves, Simon. Hopefully
you come out the other end.
Because like that's the best option we've got. Oh, and they were gonna confront Forge, I think, was part of the process.
Well, yeah. So the whole thing was Edgin was like running through the castle, and he happened to run by his daughter who was in a room. But then as the scene kind of plays out, and he says like, I'm here to rescue you and like all this other stuff. Turns out that daughter was actually just a projection Sofina had taken place like of his daughter. And she actually ends up capturing him, as well as, since everything seemed to have worked, like he actually gets the helmet to work. She actually gets into into the picture frame so that she can see that the treasure is actually being stolen and taken away versus like kept in the castle. All that goes down because as soon as Edgin gets caught, all of the people there are captured by these tentacles, which is the one and only thing, one of the only spells that I couldn't like pinpoint as to being like an actual spell.
I'm gonna guess Evard's black tentacles.
Evard's, what? God, maybe
they're not. They're blue tentacles in the movie.
Yeah.
And I don't believe Evard's black tentacles grapple. I think they just do psychic damage.
So, yes. So I know. My initial thought was Arms of Hadar.
Yeah, similar concept.
But yeah,
Evard's black tentacles do capture.
Black tentacles do restrain. It says that was it. That 100%'s it. Yeah. So you nailed it. So it's the only one that I couldn't tell.
But yeah, very cool to see the spell. And not don't worry, not too. We're not getting into weird tentacle situations here.
They
Listen,
stray away far from that. Like they don't even mention the tentacles. Like nobody even says
yeah,
anything.
it's just a thing that happens.
Yeah.
And then I really liked once again Hugh Grant's performance. I think this is in one of the trailers too, where he's just like, I don't want to see you die, so I'm gonna leave the room.
Yeah.
And then very clever, thinking on his feet. Again says, "Give us a chance. Like, don't kill us like this. Let us fight in the games, right? Like." And that they talked about these games again that they were outlawed because they were thought to be like brutish and barbarianish and like deadly. So let us fight in the games. Give us a fighting chance, which for some reason works.
Well, here's my. This is one of my. This literally brought me down a point on
Mm-hmm.
the scale. This is the one story plot line point or whatever that I didn't understand why they didn't just kill them outright right then.
Oh yeah, especially because doesn't Sorfina say like they beat your men and mine?
And mine. So I want to see them in the arena, which makes
Give
no sense.
give them another chance to get a
Why would
like.
yes? Now here is my story fix and my
Okay,
suggestion
all right.
is that let's say that because we know they want to all the Thayans want to gather a big crowd, right? Because that's how they get the big undead thing going.
Yeah.
What if the thing is not pulling in enough people? There's not enough people showing up to this thing, but they have made up a name for themselves because they've been defeating his men, because they have defeated her guys, whatever it might be. And now there's like all this like stir about this party that's going around killing people, and she knows that if they put them in this thing, that more people are going to show up. That was my like, oh, they could have explained it like that, and then that would have made sense that she wanted them to be inside the thing versus killing them outright right now.
Yeah, you could say Edgin and Holga, ex Harper, former Uthgard barbarian, escapees, the only people to escape from Revel's End prison.
Right? Oh, so easy.
Simon, descendant of legendary mage Elminster Omar, and Doric, tiefling druid of the Emerald Enclave, right?
I'm
Like,
sorry, but the way you just put it, also, this party is really stacked and really cool.
yeah, right. This is
The only escapees of Rebel End, also Harper, also this, like, holy crap.
you could. I mean, if you're gonna promote it, right? That's the way you do it.
Yeah,
You like. I mean, you have a descendant of one of the foremost wizards in the world, right?
exactly.
Like he's on this party. Oh, we gotta. I don't know. Oh, maybe
Let's
we
go
grab
watch
them.
this thing.
Yeah, sure. So that 100% would have been a better way than like they're so good they beat your guys and my guys. Let's stick them in a maze and see what happens.
Let's not kill them now
Let's
and
not.
let them live a lot longer. Oh,
Yeah,
another thing that would have been maybe on her side is um allowing them to live until they all get turned, knowing that when they get turned, they would be really useful or helpful to her side, being
yeah,
powerful and
sure.
useful in that way. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you also could have just gone like this, the most sinister, which would have been just like, I'm gonna make you watch, like I'm gonna keep you in these tentacles, and I'm gonna put you with like a box seat to watch this
Yep.
happen to see how
Yep.
badly you failed.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And like
Exactly.
that would have been like, you really want to drive home the sinister evil for the sake of evil. Like that's how you do it.
Yep.
Um,
I like that.
but instead they put him. I mean, you had to get him into there because they wanted to do this scene, which we all know.
You know.
They wanted to do this arena scene, which is cool. We've seen some of it in the trailer. It's cool because we did get to see. They have the cameo of the D&D cartoon characters
Yeah.
are there.
I think it was really cool because the cameo wasn't just like one little like in the background thing. They
They're
cameoed
there.
them like 3 or 4 times as like characters.
And then yeah, that other party, which I do feel like I don't like. They could have done something there too.
Oh, definitely could have thrown in like another reference for sure. Not
And
just like
like
some
you
random
see,
adventures.
and I keep the way they kept like pulling to them, like when like the one girl gets attacked by like the displacer beast, she runs and she like turns and looks at the camera and then turns back and gets like, "Wah!"
From
attacked.
behind, yeah.
And I was just like, all I've thought about since I saw that in the trailer is like, who is that? Like, that has to be somebody, right? Like, they
Yeah.
very clearly give them the opportunity to turn and look at the camera, and sure, they get eaten by this displacer beast, but like, that has to be somebody, right? Like, it's got to
Yeah.
be.
I mean, it was like comedic horror or like horror movie, like we're gonna kill everybody off in like the funniest way possible. It was like displacer beast here. It was like a gelatinous cube there, and they were just failing all over the place. And it was great, but it did 100% highlight the character that died. So it just didn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense if they weren't somebody of interest.
The dwarf with the flail, right? Like, I know he's in
Yep.
dwarf like makeup, but like, could that have been somebody? The barbarian type looking guy who just jumps into the gelatinous cube. Um, so we basically, they make their way through, and they find the cage, and all the cartoon characters are in the cage.
Yep.
And this part I didn't really love is that Edge is like, oh, there'll just be another thing. Like, if we get in there, like, cool, we win. They're like, no, if we get in there, there'll just be another thing, and then another thing. And I was like, okay, I guess that seemed kind of odd, but all right. Like, if this is
It
a
was,
spectacle for spectacle's sake, like, and
yeah.
they keep extending it, people aren't gonna want to watch it. You know?
That's true. I mean, I think it was also neat that they saved the old D&D characters. Like, we knew that they were going to win and they weren't going to die because they were already in the cage, and like,
Mhm.
that was supposed to be the protective zone
Yeah.
as everything is going down. So I think it was a neat little, like, well, at least they get to live.
Yeah, yeah.
They're not like dying horribly like these other characters. But I mean, they also played into the fact that they looked like children. They looked like teenagers and stuff like
Yeah.
that. They didn't play into the fact that they were like older people just dressed like the other people.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it's neat.
And then the stupidest plan.
That was out of the blue and wild, and I just didn't understand it.
I still don't understand it. So they make a point. She runs in too far. Gets her hand stuck in the Doric. Her hand stuck in the gelatinous cube. It's in one of the trailers, and then she pulls it out. And she says, that really burns. If it had been another minute, I think I would have lost my hand. And the important part is she loses the magical cup, that like the power dampener. Right?
Yeah, it
That
just
lets
like
her...
slips off her hand.
So then her thought process is, right before it dings, which is like the things shift, the walls shift, we're going to all leap into this gelatinous cube together because it's going to go through the floor. We assume. You have no
because
reason to
there is
believe
no reason to believe that would actually happen.
it could do something else, but okay, well, that's what we're going to do. And they made a point to show her finger sticking out the other side of the cube. Did you notice that?
I did.
And I thought that because, like, this is what I thought, like, cleverly, oh, part of her's on the other side of the cube. She's going to, like, wild shape into a fly, and, like, that's going to be
And
the
that's
origin
the part
point,
that gets out.
and then she gets out. And I was like,
Genius.
okay, I could get to that. Instead, she turns into a snake inside the cube, which can swim
That can move freely.
the cube for some stupid reason.
And here's the deal too. I was like, okay, negative space. Maybe it takes time for the cube to fill it in or whatever. And then, and she's just using the tunnel to get out like the whole way. But, and I was like, oh, because she put her finger in that spot, maybe it's still open, and so that, the snake can make it through that little finger spot. No, the snake fully is submerged in the thing because it comes popping out of the cube, like as if it was fully immersed in it.
And that took time. She then has to transform back and then reach into the cube again to
pull each member out.
Holga out to help pull out the other characters. And I was like, those guys, like you said, another minute you would have lost your hand. They were in there for probably a good 30 plus seconds, if not more than that. Also, no one's going to acknowledge the fact that the cube can move. Like,
yeah, it was absolutely just
stationary cube. Like, because it
was Jello for all we know.
Pseudopoding them, right? Like,
yep,
we're out. Now we're not. Like,
yep, yeah, that was strange. The fact that they just gave nothing to the gelatinous cube, like literally, it was just goop.
And like, I would have been okay. I'm not okay. These are the nitpicks where you're losing points. For some reason, the snake can slither through ooze, which it should not be able to do. but it does. She
Sure.
gets out. She gets Holga out. They both recover. They get the other two out. Not a scratch on them. Not a pock
Where's the
mark.
red skin? Where's the burn marks? Where's everything?
Holes in the armor, in the
Yeah.
cloaks. Yeah, red. I mean, you should have like her hand when she pulled it out should have been like acid out melted. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be gone, but it could have been at least
But
red.
if you're telling me something dissolves within 30 seconds to a minute, because like that guy was bones,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
within like a minute of actual action that's going on, he was just straight up bones. And you're telling me that like these people that were in for majority of that amount of time, nothing, nothing, no red skin. That I was just like, come on, red skin at least. Show me that
Yeah,
something happened.
yeah. That I mean, a real weird choice.
That could have been
Like,
comedic value too. Everybody coming out with like sunburn, like looking red skin.
yeah, and maybe you could have had healing magic. Maybe you could have just had bandages. You
Oh,
know,
healing magic. Whoa, that's one thing I didn't see in the movie.
there isn't any.
There's no healing magic.
Well, we have a druid who doesn't cast spells.
Who doesn't cast spells? But you have a bard who doesn't cast spells.
And I'm trying
You
to
have
think,
a paladin who
yeah,
never
it never heals.
healed anybody.
Do they reference? I'm trying to think. Does Doric ever reference? I could have sworn there was a reference to it at one point, but like her power, does she ever reference that at all? Like that's beyond my power. I can't, something like that. Like possibly alluding to the fact that she might have magic.
I don't recall that. I don't recall that at all.
So I do know. I remember at one point they talk about where he's going to speak with dead, and she says you can resurrect the dead, and he's like, well, no, I can just talk to them. So they at least touch on but yeah, there's not a single instance really of healing magic cure wounds or other things, because that would have also been like a really simple like way to give, like if you wanted Doric to have healing abilities, everybody comes out like red, maybe somebody's like a little more pock-y from the
Yep.
and she's just like, hang on, green,
Give
glow,
give me a prestidigitation. Give me a healing spell. Give me something small that can easily just be
utters a healing word, puts her hand on it, does one of these where you just kind of like
the Xerox, and it's gone.
yeah, something, but nothing. And like I said, I have a hard time believing that her hand was almost gone when it comes out. Like her glove is intact, right? Like maybe the glove, like she's like, oh my god, and like the glove like sloughs off because of it melted, and like not even a smoke effect.
You see, that's what I was
anything.
thinking. You could do that in post. You don't even have to do that practically. Just give me a smoke effect on the skin. Simple.
That lost opportunity there, right? Special edition release. George Lucas
yeah. Special edition added smoke.
Yeah, change the portal, add in smoke. All right, so then they manage to they find all their loot. All of their stuff is all where it's supposed to be, which is easy for them to find. And then they're going to go to the boat, I think, right? And they're going to try to.
Well, they find the loot on the boat, right? Because that's
right.
where he was supposed to be escaping, and they like knock out all the guards that are like trying to protect the boat and everything like that. And they are outie. They're like, see you later. We're gone, because at this point you see that Forge like makes his way back with his daughter because like he's trying to escape during the events of this all, and this is where right before Forge does this, he makes the pass off, the handoff to what's her face, Sofina, and says like, you know what, city's yours, I got what I need, bye.
Yeah, because she's going to start using... that's when we learn that she wants to have the crowd for all of the people to use the beseeching death or whatever to make them all into undead. And yeah, the party sneaks to the boat. They find the tablet of reawakening. And then they encounter Forge there, and they're like, tell her the truth. You lied, blah, blah, blah. And then he does the typical villain thing where he grabs the knife and puts it to the daughter's throat and is like, I'm getting on that boat. My boat. Get out of the way. Put your weapons down. And Chekhov's potato returns.
Scene. I was dying again because it just... out of the blue.
So
So
I
random.
have a couple of thoughts on this. You see Holga looks down. They're all like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, you have a wild shaping druid. You have a
Mhm.
sorcerer who's just proven he can do all sorts of cool stuff. And then she looks down, goes to put her axe down, and sees on the other side of like where she lays her axe is like a barrel full of potatoes. And then it cuts back to Forge talking, and then like in slow mo, a potato hits him in the face. And
And
my yeah, go
go
ahead.
ahead. No,
No,
you do you.
I was gonna say the shot composition here. He's looking at them, and the potato. He does. You don't even see like the turn, the eye, even the eye shift recognition to this object. And
Yeah.
like he doesn't even seem to notice the potato, and it hits him in the face like he's unaware of it the whole time.
Yeah.
Like I would have been okay if he's just like, like
Yeah.
acted up a little bit, but
It's okay. So I have two things with that scene.
okay.
You nailed the first one. There's no recognition of this like 3D, obviously 3D potato coming at him. So there's no like you obviously are taking out of it because you're like, oh, that's just a 3D potato. Nobody there's not even noticing it.
Mm-hmm.
But secondly, when it hits him, there's no slow motion
Impact.
impact force on his face. It's literally him just going like this, and they focus on him because the potato explodes,
Yeah.
showing the skin and everything underneath where the potato hit. So in reality, you'd be getting that whole like warbling effect on the
Yeah.
skin. You see any kind of punch or hit on the face whenever you see it in slow motion, you get that like water effect almost on the skin. Like literally nothing. Not to mention the shadows of the potato are not there on the face. So it's like this three-dimensional object that has seemingly disappeared the moment it starts to separate, and there's nothing on the face showing that's happening. So it's really, really poorly done VFX wise on that portion.
Yeah, my wife actually brought up the same thing, the lack of impact.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like he had the knife to her throat. You're telling me he didn't see her reach over, grab the potato, rear back, and throw it?
It's that stealth check, baby. That
Yeah.
20.
Yeah, I guess. So the only other thing I will say in defense of the potato scene, is this is 100% a D&D campaign moment where early on, Holga's character in the campaign does something and she like knocks somebody out with a potato as like a joke, right?
Yeah.
And this becomes a running gag for you throughout the course of your D&D campaign, right?
Yep.
You try it a couple times, it doesn't work, and it just becomes like you're the potato, like this is your thing. And you might even have like a nickname for what, like, like, oh, I'm gonna spud him, like, I don't know, something like that. And this is the quintessential moment. Like, you need to do the cool thing at this time. What do you do? And like, yeah, you could throw your axe at him. You could maybe cast a spell to disarm him or something. And you're like, and the DM just happens to be like, and you notice with your passive perception a barrel full of potatoes, and then like the whole party just kind of nods, and that's that kind of a moment
Yes,
that
the
only happens.
catalyst.
Yeah, that happens in a D&D campaign. So I respect the scene for that, because we do have a little bit of reference to the potato early on. It's
Yeah.
not like the way I'm selling you this potato scene. But
yeah, no, I think one of two ways in a regular D&D that just happened. The way the way you explained it, or the player is like they're all out of options. They don't have any spells, or like literally like the bad guy's about to get away. Then the player's like, "Is there any
anything.
potatoes around? Is there anything I could use? Like, are there's potatoes, right?" And the DM goes, "Sure, there's a potato around."
Yeah, natural 20. Potato hits him right in the face,
Right.
drops his dagger. So they
Grab
leave.
the girl and gone. Yeah.
They're leaving. They're doing they made it. But in typical reluctant hero fashion, they see the beseeching death coming down, and they're like, "Oh no,
Yeah.
we can't." And then they say that they're going to keep we didn't reference this earlier, but he said that he was going to swore to divvy up all the treasure they found amongst the
Yeah.
people of Neverwinter. So very clever. They used the half or quarter-mile radius of the hither tither staff to suck all of the gold out of the ship and have it come out of Forge's mouth on a balloon, hot air balloon, to
Yeah.
just pour gold out so that people in the town leave the arena to go chase down the gold that's dropping. Which
I had one thing
yeah,
that I was thinking about that whole time as I saw this happening. I was like, that balloon is really high up. Those coins are made of metal.
uh-huh.
And also there was like boxes and things in
Goblets and all
like
sorts of
big
stuff.
thing. And I was like, you're gonna injure somebody. Somebody's gonna get hit by one of those things.
I was wondering what they were gonna do with the staff. I thought they were gonna funnel out the beseeching death to like see.
Oh, interesting.
Like portal her and then the thing to like summon it all out to where there's nobody, so it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But this worked. They floored it with gold. Everybody comes running around, and she's real pissed. And then they get into the fight scene that we see in the trailer. It's the final showdown.
I have one thing about when she gets pissed, and I feel like it was a not a misstep on the writer's portion, but a missed opportunity. When she's like looking around all pissed off, like at the fact that her plan is not going off, she just screams no like 3 times. She's no, no, no. Like she doesn't give like a I can't believe how is this? Who is it? Like she doesn't really give me any kind of emotion besides no, no. Like that to me is like me as a DM not being able to improvise very well in the moment. That's what it felt like.
Well, also like no spells to try to shut people in, lock them out. You're a
Yeah.
powerful wizard. I feel like you would have had. I mean, she had like I guess the room of people she was with, which was like 10 people.
She did get them. They were, by the way, never mentioned.
No,
Because
never
they're
touched on
goners.
again. Yeah,
They're
all of the
absolutely
high
goners.
nobility people, they're all dead. And then we get into the showdown, the fight scene, which once again, oh, you know what we didn't touch on, and I want to jump back to it because it was really funny when they were going to try to sneak in. Chris Pine's character comes out playing the lute, right?
Oh,
this
you're
happens
right.
earlier
You're
on.
right.
We had to jump back to this, and he's singing, and all the guards are like, "Oh!" And then all of a sudden, he just like starts going on like a broken record scratch. And
He does like the repeat.
and he just keeps repeating. They're like, "What?" And then you cut to see Simon is casting a spell, like an illusion, but his foot gets stuck in the cobblestone. Odd choice for that, but whatever. So he's losing concentration on the spell, and like Chris Pine just starts getting more and more distorted. It's like his face is squished. It's so funny.
The eyes get bigger and the head just starts sinking into the body, but getting bigger.
A beautiful way to show off like the slight loss of concentration on the illusion.
The hand begins to the top of the lute begins to deform, and oh my god, I was dying laughing.
That was really good. So I wanted to mention that because now we're in the final fight.
Yeah.
And this brings up what my point is that Chris Pine's character is pointless in a fight. You're fighting off, showing down against a red wizard, and he's just a guy. Yeah. Like he has a lute with some reinforcement on the back of it.
Clearly, because he whacks people with that thing, and it is sturdy.
Yeah, I didn't notice it at first, but I noticed in one of the scenes there's like looks like leather like riveted to the back of it to like
there's something there.
Reinforcement. I know the official stat block calls it a reinforced lute, but
oh really? Well, there you go.
Yeah, it also does thunder damage in the stat block, so go figure.
Okay, well, just kidding.
Yeah, he also can cast spells in the stat block, but he doesn't do that either. And basically, they get into a fight, and you see Doric turn into her owlbear form, and they're fighting. And yeah, that's basically it's the big final showdown, and they get to a point where they he does hit her, I think, once, sneaks up behind her, and like,
he does get a good banjo like kabong,
yeah,
El kabong kind of hit.
And then she starts to cast a time stop again, which apparently is her signature move, which is fine. It's a good move. And we see like Simon like has like a spell like cast like and then she's
which
like,
to me is like it almost looks like chromatic orb. Like it was like orb thing in there. Can we talk first off? Can we talk about while this fight is going on, the amount of different types of spells that were being cast in this? Like named spells are
that's
like
true,
going off.
Yeah,
so many cool ones.
She Luke's resilient spheres,
which was like the biggest surprise out of all.
The hamster ball. They get sent on that, and we get the Bigby's hand fight.
Bigby's hand, and I think Earthen Grasp is
Well, I
basically how
thought
they
I
played
was
it.
yeah, I wasn't sure if it was Earthen Grasp or just Bigby's hand
Well,
versus Bigby's
she
hand.
definitely had Bigby's hand because it was floating around
Oh,
and
that's true.
punching and
His
stuff
is
like
always
that.
connected to
His
the
just like
ground.
holding it back and like trying to catch him and stuff like that.
I was wondering if it was going to be a weird. I'm glad they didn't do like thumb war, rock paper scissors with the
Yes,
hands.
thank goodness.
I
Oh
thought
my
it was
god,
going to
that would have been
maybe go
childish.
that route, but they chose not to. And we see a couple of different spells get cast, and then like they're
I saw
kind of
Magic Missile and oh gosh, Scorching Ray
yep, I did
was in
see.
there.
Yeah, and oh, you know what? I forgot to mention. We mentioned she animates the dragon, right?
Ah,
The
yeah, like
dragon
right at the
statue,
start of the fight. Yeah,
and we see that, and she's kind of just like up high, like having this do it, and then at one point, Doric shoots her with a slingshot,
sure. Yeah,
and it hits her in the head, and then the dragon stops, and I was like, oh, she failed her concentration check because she hit her while she was
yeah,
very clearly. You could see her like focusing on the spell. She
yep.
gets knocked out of it, and then the dragon stops moving, and it's like, oh, that's how we're gonna
So
represent
she was
concentration
like
mechanic.
doing her hands like this. So I was like, is she controlling it, or is she was just casting a spell that allows it to animate? You know what I mean? And she's
Hmm.
just concentrating because when it gets like its face covered by like a Toro like thing or whatever, it like essentially goes blind and has to like get
Mm.
out of it. But I was thinking like if somebody's above controlling this, they could just tell them like what direction to attack and like do like it doesn't blindness doesn't really affect it.
Right.
But I was like, but you're right. It definitely seemed way more like a concentration thing versus like actually one for one controlling it like a puppet.
I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna go with animate objects. That's gonna be my guess as to the spell.
I could see that. Yeah.
You know, because it does let you turn statues or objects into things that can fight for you.
Yep.
So I like to see the use of like that. You know, they clock her out of it. And then there's a really cool scene again, not to reference Avatar: The Last Airbender again, but the final showdown between Aang and Fire Lord Ozai, where like he kind of like catches his arms and he's like fighting, and they're all like holding her and they're like throwing and hitting and like casting
Yep.
spells up close, and she's just like like
She
nothing,
throws up a shield, like an actual, like it looks like the spell shield
and she's
pops
just like
up and blocks
they're
like a bunch of magic.
locked arms, like trying to hold her back, and she's doing all this, and then again we get the time stop.
Yep.
We see Simon mid cast. So this is something I noticed that we didn't see Holga towards this whole last part of the fight.
So second watch, I am going to watch the hell out of it. Now I'm going to spoil it yet till we get to it, but I'm going to watch the hell out of this fight and watch her the whole time because I really want to keep an eye on that.
And then we get to she comes down and her face gets sunk in and more
Yeah.
She wasn't necromancy enough. We get even more so.
Yeah.
As she's having her final monologue with Chris Pine.
I honestly, I thought that was going to be Saz Tam making like an appearance. Ooh. And like, I thought that was like, you know what? You can't do this. Let me do this. And it was like going to just be him taking over her body. I thought that's where that was going to go.
Yeah. And he talks, and because we saw the illusion before, I thought maybe it was going to be an illusion of Chris Pine's character.
Yeah,
she was
I did too.
And I thought he was going to show up and, bong her again to like give him some cool moment. But we noticed that it just stops because the daughter with her invisibility necklace, who for some slips the inhibitor bracelet on the Red Wizard, and then apparently Simon had counterspelled her time stop.
The actual time stop never actually went off. They played it out and went like yeah. And I will say this, to the point of the movie and if you were truly watching, you can see there was no VFX added to this like it was in the other one, where you could see like this, like you could definitely see this like stuff start to come out, but you don't continually see it. Yeah. You only see it for the first part of it, and then you see the characters like jump and stop in place. Yeah. Like you can see that clearly was just them jumping and stopping. It wasn't like digitally like paused like all the other times that they were like stopped or anything like that. They just like
that'd be I'd have to rewatch it, but that'd be a really cool practical way to do that scene, which would be really neat.
Yeah, that's 100% how they did it, because I was like, that to me, because before they did the reveal of like, oh, it never went off, I was like, well, that kind of looked crappy. I thought, I thought they would have digitally made it look like they stopped, but it kind of just looked like they just froze in the camera.
And then unfortunately, which is not unfortunate. It's just we live in a world post the 2012 Avengers film. So it loses a little bit of originality here. And he's like, we put that collar on your wrist so that Doric could do this. And then Doric in owlbear form just Hulk and Loki, just bam,
Scene
bam, 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 just,
1-to-1 scene.
you know, instead of the over the head, psh, 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 it's just into the ground. And I will say they add a little bit more brutality, like where she does it like 3 or 4 times, and then she's still kind of like moving, and then she just really just goes.
Yeah, there was no doubt that she was dead. Like,
and then throws her over her shoulder, hits her into a side of the castle. She drops to the ground, and the castle falls on her. Like, all right, we got it. She dead.
Yeah, that was. I mean, to be honest, when it started happening, I was like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
But then it kept going, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then it kept going, and then I'm like, okay, you made it funny. You made it
unique
it
enough.
almost like you knew that it was going to have that effect. Like, oh shit, this has been seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Let's turn it up to 11.
Yeah. Gotta make it distinct enough from the Hulk scene.
Yeah.
But then I'll pitch it to you for this. We find out that not all was well in the final fight here.
Yeah, so the camera, as everybody is like celebrating the success, and especially his daughter who came in to kind of like save the day, they kind of are looking around and they don't see a member of the party, and you look over and the camera kind of pans down slowly, and you can see Holga is lying there with a dagger like in her chest. And at first you're like, oh, maybe she's just really wounded and like she needs to pull this out and a healing spell will be fine. But then you kind of get taken back to the many times during this movie they reference the fact that the blades of these Thanes will make whatever it stabs unhealable. Like they can't be healed and they can't be revived. So no matter what, this is it. And so they have a big time I fucking cried moment, like bawling in the theater, going back in time and talking or kind of revealing all the times that she was a mother. She was like a loving mother to the little girl. And like it was absolutely just, it was heartbreaking because it's like, you know, as a parent, you never want to have like this moment where your child sees you die. And so it's like, it's so heartbreaking. And for no reason too. Did you have to do that, D&D? Did you have to pull my heartstrings like that? But anyways, they are like, obviously, we can't res her because, you know, she got stabbed by this blade. So this is it. That's it. But then Chris Pine pulls out the tablet and the one that was supposed to resurrect his wife. And Chris Pine is the one having these memories of her being that mother figure to his daughter. And the fact that his wife was so important to him, he didn't realize how important this person was to his daughter because of the fact that she died when she was an infant. She doesn't remember anything about this woman. So him wanting to bring back his wife was all technically about him. Obviously, he wanted her to be her mother, but like she had that in her, in Holga. So it's like he holds this thing up and it shows it to his daughter, and the look of realization comes into the daughter's eyes, and it's like, yeah, let's do this thing, resurrect her. And then of course, this is sad. It's terribly sad because when they bring her back too, it's even more sad. She's like, you didn't just waste that thing on me, did you? And she looks sad at first, but then she kind of like, I'm glad to be back, like face, you know, comes back. So
once I had realized, I was like, I was like, okay, this is what's going on. Once I realized she wasn't in the fight, I was like, okay, something happened. And then I was like, oh, they're going to do the thing. And they did bring up a point, I think, earlier on, to your point, that Chris Pine basically told his daughter, Edgen told his daughter, like, I was going to use the tablet to bring your mother back, but I went out to try to get it because I wasn't really worried about you as her daughter, more about her as my wife, kind of a thing. So
yeah, and the one thing, again, taking a little bit down on the meter of my like of the movie, she had to say the one liner, did we win? Did we get him? I was
Yeah.
like, no.
Yeah, you could have left that
Oh,
out.
so cringy.
Yeah. And then it cuts to we cut to them all kind of relaxing, and we realize that they're all gonna stay together, and maybe Simon and Doric will re-establish a relationship or try. And then we see Zank catches Forge trying to escape with a big goblet, gold goblet,
Yeah.
and then it cuts to him after his 1 year appeal, attempting to appeal in Revel's End, to for telling the whole story where this continued on to try to appeal to them, and
kind
then
of kind of revealing this as like the whole movie was just basically him recounting everything to them at Revel's End.
and then I really like that he's just like, well, and he grabs Jonathan, and then, and then the same woman who's there is just like, Jonathan, no. And grabs him, and he goes to try to leap out the window, but they bricked up the window. He just jumps into the window and falls to the floor.
Stuff like that in front of it.
Yeah,
They left on the curtain so it made it look like a window. He just slams into it. Oh my god, had me rolling again.
and they're like, no, you're denied. Which was funny. And that's pretty
Oh
much the
god.
end of the film.
Yeah, roll credits.
There is a mid-credit scene, which is they made a point of like you can only ask people 5 questions
Yeah,
with
back
Speak
in the
with Dead.
graveyard.
And they asked the one guy 4 questions, and they never asked him the fifth one.
So he was just always alive. He's just gonna be there waiting for somebody to ask him one more question so he can just die.
And that was it. No other end credit scene. So just the one mid credit.
The animatic for the credits was excellent. Was
Yes.
well done, super well done.
Yeah.
Thought it was really cool. Old English style, like tapestry paintings and stuff like that come to life, almost like a puppet show and stuff. It was really neat.
So having gone through almost the exact runtime of the movie of our review here, the spoiler version of it, do you still feel that your rating that you gave it before having re-talked all the points, are you still where you were?
I still sit at, if you are just a regular moviegoer, it is like around like a 7.5. I would take it up a little bit. I would secure the 8.5.
Okay.
Because I was like 8.5 before for D&D fans. I would secure the 8.5. Because going back and talking about all the spells that were cast and all the little intricacies and stuff like that, my little nerd heart is just fluttering right now, just thinking about how cool it is to have like an actual good movie representation like of what we do.
Yeah, definitely. So anything else you would like to say about D&D Honor Among Thieves before we bring this review to a close? This review / live retelling of the whole plot.
Yeah, live retelling. You know what? Watch this review, and if you make it all the way to the end, I appreciate you guys for being here.
Yeah, right.
But honestly, the one thing I want to say about this movie is that I am so unbelievably happy that it wasn't just awful movie, because this could have been played out so hard as just a money grab, as like we're gonna slap D&D's name on this and we're just gonna throw it into the wind and we're gonna get what we get kind of thing. You could absolutely tell that the directors knew exactly what they were talking about, exactly what they were doing with every single scene, and it is to the point that I believe, and please don't take this for what it is, because there's awesome D&D movies out there where they play like the board game and then they jump into the game and then they go back to the board game. This is the perfect in-world D&D movie. I think it's great.
Yeah, I would agree, right? This is a story in the world of Dungeons and Dragons, not a story of playing Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Right.
We might make analogs to what it would be like to be at a table playing these characters, but this was ultimately supposed to be an in-world story, not a story of people playing the game. And because they did it in such a way that they did, it doesn't like nothing. Like I said, it was smaller scope. Like it would the besieging death would have been an army, but it wasn't the end of the world, right? Other
Right.
areas would be safe. So this leaves the opportunity to potentially bring all of these characters back to tell a separate story, maybe as their slightly higher level. It also allows you to just make other stories within this world. Um, Still shocked that there's no tie-in adventure in like that we have.
Wild, right? I
No,
mean,
yeah,
come on, that's got to be coming down the line, right?
not from what we've
I
seen.
I hope it is, because honestly, this like it seems like something that can easily be tied into something that can be run like an actual game.
The
Like the whole
closest.
time I'm thinking, like, okay, this would be chapter one, this would
Mhm.
be chapter two, like, and then boom, you play this like in a series of 3 or 4 one shots, and you've got a campaign, like you've got your game.
Yeah, you definitely. I mean, this could definitely run at least a 1 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
probably, if not a little more than that. We like the closest thing we have is the stat blocks for the NPCs, or the stat
Yes.
blocks for rather for the whole party, Forge and
Mm-hmm.
Sofina. We have the stat blocks for them. That's the closest thing we have, but no, not even like a free PDF adventure kind of showcasing that. Which just seems. I mean, there's merchandise. A lot of merchandise has started to come out from things like
Look,
uh,
if you're under monetizing, one way you could monetize this even further, Wizards of the Coast, is by making us pay to play a one shot of these characters. Damn it!
oh,
Look,
you
give
you
us
went
content.
you went there. You went there. It's true. It does seem it does make me hold out some hope because I think there was a D&D TV series I heard was in the works.
Yeah, I did hear that.
I don't
That's
know if that's
scary. That's
still
scary.
I don't know if that's still going to happen,
Hmm.
but and I don't think it's the same team that did the movie, but this I think more than anything shows that it can be done.
Yes,
Right, because for
100%.
like the longest time, many of us know video game movie adaptations were never a thing that could be done well. Then we had something like the Castlevania Netflix series, which showed you that it very
That's
much can be done well
The Witcher.
if the Witcher the right medium and the right team can make these things happen. Right, Castlevania. I mean, this D&D movie, if this was like an animated series, would also have been done probably just fine because you would
Yeah.
have been able you like the practical effect of Bradley Cooper and just that would have been fine, right? We could have handled that perfectly fine in an animated series.
Yeah.
But my point is, I'm hopeful that this isn't just a lightning in a bottle kind of a thing. Like we got one off that's good, and that's just like this gets held on a pedestal because it was decent.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope that it leads to more because, and I again, call us shills all you want. But we're critical of Wizards of the Coast turn after turn, right? And we have been, and everybody is for a while. So I want, if this does well, this also potentially opens up the doors to other things we like getting. Like, if this did poorly, this will show that, look, not even your nerds will show up to your nerd movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's it.
And,
Like,
and here's us, like, again, coming from a point of love and not like we're being told to say a certain thing. This is a good movie. Do not like, if you want to like boycott WotC and just say like I'm not gonna eat, or was it Hasbro, not Hasbro,
yeah,
Hasbro, is it boycott Hasbro and say I'm not gonna go see that movie for Hasbro? That's fine. Go watch it with somebody else who has like who buys the movie and stuff like that. But do yourself a favor and be entertained by this movie, because I'm telling you, it's one worth watching.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good note. So, Dan, one more time for folks who don't know who you are, where can they find you?
Well, right now you can find me at my house, but you could probably find me better online at Nat One Fun, pretty much everywhere. You can find me on Twitter most of all, but you can also find me on my YouTube here, which is a growing channel where we just passed 500 subscribers. Doing good, folks.
Nice.
But we do unboxings, and I'm actually going to be going to the the WotC Summit.
What's it? Yep.
The what's it call it? Yeah, no,
Yeah.
the WotC Summit, which is a content creator only. Basically, they're inviting me to their headquarters to do some research about what's going to be coming up in the future for Wizards of the Coast and D&D specifically. So I'm going to be putting out videos for that. So keep an eye out for that on my YouTube channel. Subscribe if you want to get notified when that comes out.
Yeah, I mean, I will be there as well. So we'll
No, don't listen to this guy though.
Yeah,
Don't. Yeah. If you're subscribed to him, unsubscribe, and then come to my channel and subscribe. That's how this works, right?
Yeah,
Collaborations.
this is how collabs work. This is
You have some to spare, is what I'm getting.
oh yes, yeah. I have a couple, but anyway, we'll be on the lookout for content from the summit in the next couple of weeks here.
Yeah.
We'll see, right? Everybody's going in with an
Honestly,
open mind.
I exactly. I'm going in with an open mind, but here's the thing. Open mind might be the way we're looking at it, but a critical mind is
Yes.
more of the way of defining it. We are going in to be the voices of the crowd. We are, unfortunately, online right now, we are being placed on some invisible pedestal for some reason, being like, oh, you have this secret invite to this secret thing. Like, you are obviously on WotC's side about everything. You don't understand. The people that are invited to this thing have been the most critical people on the internet about what WotC has been doing recently. So I think this, to me at least, this looks like an olive branch that's being placed out there to be like, hey, let's try to work this out. We're bringing you guys in to give your opinions about what's going on. We're going to show you what we have behind the curtains, and we want your opinions. We want the things that you've been talking about to kind of come to light, and we want to know what you might think the community has going on and what they think about things. So we're trying to kind of meld that space in between to be critical, but also to be understanding.
Correct. And that's a good way to also approach seeing this movie. So anyway,
yes.
Thank you all for coming and watching, and we will see you all in the next one.